Hey, what's good, world? It's Sample Space. So we've got for you a bit of a digital listening party of the album. I get to be interviewed by my favorite person in the world, my wife, and on this very couch. And we take time through each major track in between listening to just, talk through some questions and have a bit of a conversation in a way that this album's meant to do. So take a listen. Hope you really enjoy it.
Welcome to the listening hour with Sample Space. Album bio, The Talk by Sample Space, refers to a highly acclaimed 2025 album from the artist Sample Space. A profound musical exploration of faith, fatherhood, the Black experience, and connection, featuring seamless production and meaningful lyricism, available on all major streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. So let's go ahead and open up with our opening questions.
Okay.
Let's talk about the name Sample Space. How did you get the name Sample Space, and what does it mean?
Yeah. So I'll say my government first name is Thaddeus, and I wanted to actually have an artist name by that. But for anybody else who has Starbucks names and knows what I'm talking about, it just doesn't. That name doesn't work well in the age of Siri and Alexa. So that's probably the main reason. When I was growing up, everybody's like, oh, you can go by your full name. It's so cool. It sounds jazzy. But nobody knows what it is. I have to repeat myself like 5 times. So that's probably the main reason. But another is that, where the name Sample Space came from, I'm a bit of a math nerd. I'm actually a math teacher. So the idea of probability kind of plays into it. Right. And the idea is that I'm saying that I am the sample space. I feel like a lot of times when artists, they, represent themselves, they try to express themselves. There's an element that you express like a portion or like a smaller part of who you are. And my goal is to express all of who I am in my art and what it is that I do. So that's like, I'm the sample space. Like, I'm not just like this event here, that event there. And I feel like artistically and sonically, it matches me too, because I feel like I've had a lot of different kind of hodgepodge experiences. With life in general, but also with music. Like, what a tagline I had for a while was like, born in jazz, raised in gospel, lover of hip hop. And like, it's part of it is also like me kind of refusing to choose a lane and trying to just be more expressive altogether.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then how does it connect to, or how does your name Sample Space connect to this album and what you're doing with The Talk? One of the things you talk to me a lot about is how Sample Space, it has to do with like statistics, and how people like market statistics. And when I think about the album The Talk, and I think about just race and how like people use statistics to sort of not promote their view, but sort of like dictate how people believe about things. Like to me, that like brings in that connection.
Damn, that's cool. No, I like that. If I can play on the idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think one thing like I really value and try to express, and sometimes to a fault, is like integrity. Mm-hmm. And this idea of what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's stereotypes where like you're only showing a certain part of an image.
Right.
And then there's like the everything behind the curtain, like the 90% of the iceberg underneath the water. Mm-hmm. So I guess this album can be kind of like that, right? It's like the conversations that you have behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. The conversations where you go places that you normally wouldn't show or give to other people. And that's part of the purpose of like intentionally diving into that to be more expressive about something. Yeah.
And the last question is, can you tell me a little bit about the album artwork and how it came to be?
Okay.
So it looks like it is a flip phone, but it's got some different parts that are a part of it. Can you explain the different parts?
Yeah. So the whole thing's like a razor phone, which is like 2000s era
And
nostalgia.
that was like your first phone.
Yeah, it was my first phone. It was back when like T9 was a thing. There's no voice text, no nothing like that. And then at the top you have a little radio, that's like, could even harken back to the days of my grandparents listening to the Lone Ranger and stuff like that. And under it you've got the
Record player?
yeah, thank you. Record player. And the record player in and of itself is actually like two different time periods and genres, because you have the record player itself that plays vinyl, and then you have hip hop and the introduction of like using turntables to make something different, which again is like kind of what all this is. And then there's like, cassette tapes, which is like, 80s, 90s, and then kind of that digital age of having like a Spotify play button, tracks and things like that. So it's kind of all just kind of connected together, and kind of, represents how I feel like music in the Black community like has kind of stayed connected, or samples, or like, kind of repeats or reiterates, but kind of says the same thing or does the same thing.
And one of the things that I remember you talking about was how with the talk, it's sort of this idea that like all these men, Black men, have had to sit down with their Black sons and have these conversations throughout all these time periods too. So it was just like, so you had like the, whether it's a record player or it's a cassette tape or it's a cell phone or whatever, as these mediums have changed over time, the thing that has kind of stayed the same is that Black men have had to have this conversation with their Black sons about America and how America sees them, and maybe some of the concepts in the talk have changed over time, but I think a big thing is safety, and how we present, or I guess for I don't want to say how we, because I'm a Black woman, but how Black men present themselves to the world so that they can remain safe.
Yeah. No, that's true. I do remember saying that, and I love your rendition of it. I think one thing too, like I'd want to say, like I don't remember having like a sit down specific talk with my dad or anything like that. And I think one thing, because I know the talk is kind of stereotypical in and of itself, right? And one of the things I think that gets explored in the album and kind of comes towards the end is this idea that like a talk is an ongoing conversation, and also a lot of the talk happens without words. Or at least that's what came through some of the interviews that I was doing, is with a lot of the folks that kind of snippets found their ways into the interludes, is this idea that like even if you're not having the talk, there's a need for it. And like, yeah, even if you're not having the talk, there's a need to have the talk, and that need gets filled in with whatever silence there is, whatever actions there are, whatever modeling happens, right, from parent to child. And there's this kind of like, even from the child's perspective, right, because they're trying to make sense out of their world. I feel like a lot of times when I might hear from like, I'm sitting here like I got critics. The biggest one is my inner critic in my own head, right? Again, I'm working on expression. But like one of the things that I can sense or feel, right, is kind of that like pushback towards the idea of like really highlighting the importance or the need of the talk is like, why are you introducing this to them when they're so young? Like, just let them have their own life. Like, if you introduce all this stuff, you're going to confuse their minds, or like, make them approach, walking through life in a negative way. And it's like, they're waiting for answers to questions that they've developed walking through life at 4 years old, at 5 years old. Like, yes, don't throw all this stuff at them that's developmentally inappropriate, or like is going to have them like have this view of the world that's just like they're not ready for. And that's, I feel like, a part of what the album talks about. But it's like, don't act like these kids don't have a good sense of their experience and their reality, And I know for me as a kid, when I was like 6, 7, maybe even 5, like there's a lot of questions that I had and a lot that I didn't know. But I feel like having those questions from my own lived experience reveals that even at that time, I knew more than my white peers, So.
All right. Okay. So now let's get into listening to some of the tracks. So what we're going to do in terms of structure is listen to the track, and each track will have about 1 to 2 questions.
Never say that I didn't tell you. Never say that it can't be you. Oh, every day I speak this over you. That your Father and God see value in you. It may not come from places that you hope, but don't think for a sec that they could ever know. Yeah. 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 Flip the script, this is different. The story of the true militant. Colonizers don't keep it in a print, so we tell.
Okay. Maybe. Okay. That's fine.
Okay. For the intro track, it's the first music track. So why did you pick that track to take the lead?
Yeah. I was really torn between having New Negro Spiritual take the lead because I felt like it was stronger in terms of like being gripping as a hook for the whole album. It also more sonically matches like most of the album, but but there's a real reason why. Even though those were good reasons for me to lead with that one, I wanted to go with the introduction song because I feel like it feels like more of an introduction to myself as an artist.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I do rapping and I love hip hop, but like I was a band geek in school and like I play all kinds of instruments and like I, learned how to sing in a gospel choir and there's a lot of it that I feel like is kind of all encompassing. Like you even hear me on that song playing saxophone and trumpet. And I mean doing also playing piano and doing the singing and other kinds of stuff. And it felt very sample space to me in terms of like how I'd want to identify myself. Also, like the way that I kind of look at it is the album has two starts. Like it has a soft start with the introduction, which is more like kind of like nurturing and kind of like, hey, like come here, it's going to be okay. Has more kind of like gospel and hope. And then New Negro Spiritual is kind of like the alternative start following that interlude that like, even when I was recording the interview with Marquis' voice on there with his line about Santa Claus, I was just like, this is a different world. So it's almost like an onion like peeling back and like giving two different takes on like starting the conversation. So yeah. You're fine.
I'm drinking. And so I heard a lot of like instruments on that track. Can you tell me which ones you were playing?
Yeah. I was playing tenor saxophone, I was playing trumpet, piano. I mean, I don't count MIDI as me playing the instruments, but I will say that I using a MIDI keyboard, right? I recorded and programmed drum set and electric bass. I was singing on there as the lead and doing the background vocals. I mean, there's tambourine in the background, a little bit of organ at the beginning. I think that's everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me or talk to me a little bit about how you layer that track with the instruments.
Yeah, I mean, piano kind of is the center stage of it. I'm a piano player when I do kind of songwriting. Granted, this. So I mean, granted, the song. This was. Well, no, that's not answering your question.
You can go off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I usually, because of my musical background, I usually write with the chords first and then kind of the lyrics second, or and kind of, puzzle piece the melody into the chords, because I'm just very, I know I've been programmed in jazz to be like, what are the changes? What are the changes? And then like the changes are what like make the mood for everything. And then you put that on top. But this one was more like, okay, I have something to say. Here's the melody. I'm singing it. How do I put the music to it? So in terms of layering, I feel like my voice took more of a center position, which I mean makes sense with the talk. And shout out to Epic the Dawn, having his beats on the album helped a lot with me being able to focus on the lyricism on certain songs. In a way where I was able to kind of tug and pull in different parts of the album to show like musicality, like recording stuff in the interludes versus like really leaning into content and lyrics and like saying something. Okay. But yeah.
And then on the intro track, was that the first track of the album that was written, or was that written at a different time? Like which track on the album was written first? Do you remember?
That's tough. Technically, second class citizen. Yeah, it's the seventh track. I always see 7 in front of it. Gotcha. Technically, Second Class Citizen was the first one, but it was drastically different, and I wrote it like in like 2015 or something. Okay. And I revamped the whole thing. Like, I used samples from the original one that I made in the bridge. So, I mean, but like, it's so different. I don't know that I put that one. I feel like the first one was actually the first interlude. I actually had it nicknamed on my, or not nicknamed. I had the file named on my laptop as Ghosts of Colonization. Oh, okay. Because I was aiming to like write my first beat for the album and the track. But it was one of those beats that was kind of like more intricate than like, you know, it's not like repetitive where you have the hook on it or something like that. I couldn't figure out how to write on it. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do interludes. And this thing feels deep. Like, and it just worked really well with all the interviews of people and kind of pasting it together.
Okay. All right. So then for the new Negro Spiritual song, I just have the one question. And it was, what was the hardest part of finishing the song?
Of New Negro Spiritual. Mm-hmm. The hardest part of finishing the song was being comfortable with people feeling a certain way about my emotions in the way that I presented it. There's like one lyric about Abraham Lincoln that like I made edits on because I'm just like, again, I'm in my expression era, but it was like at the same time I'm like I'm in a zone while I'm writing it. Like I'm angry. Like I'm angry because this stuff is ridiculous, right? The fact that this is the history of America and that we have to live this way. But like, I also just want to make sure that like self-righteousness isn't come. I mean, I want to allow some self-righteousness to come out because I feel like that's part of expression, and the album kind of like reveals some self-righteousness. I feel like through everything, but I think the lyric before was like Lincoln was a racist. But he meant well. I changed it to Lincoln's kind of racist because it's like, you know, like let me give, you know, honor to where honor's due because of context of people living at certain times. But it's like the whole thing is like, don't get it twisted. Like, and it's not this like, are we measuring people by today's standards? It's like, are we measuring people by appropriate standards? Right. You know, like that's like the thing I want to be able to stick to. But there's elements where it's like, oh gosh, like, you know, here I am, you know, public school teacher, CRT, like whatever it is, you know, and it's just like, do I really care like that much? And why do I care that much about what people think? Like, I mean, I care, but I don't know. Like a lot of me making art, like up until this point has been about convincing people about my experience. And the whole purpose of the talk I found as I was working on it was to actually turn my face from that audience that I feel like I need to convince or appease and turn towards myself, my inner child, to turn towards my own son, to turn towards, right, where expressing myself actually makes a difference. Yeah. So, I feel like wrestling with New Negro Spiritual was like one of those ways to get me to get there.
All right. We're going to listen to the next song.
Cool.
Or interlude and then the song.
I wish I could be just like you. Not even so concerned with what I do. The trophies of my deeds are not your prize. No.
All right, so for this song, we're talking about Who I Am. What was happening in your life when you wrote this song?
Yeah, as we were listening to it, I was being reminded that I actually, I wrote this in 2 different periods of time in my life. The first one was actually, the song was just a straight up worship song. Mm-hmm. And what was going on in my life was actually a lot of shame and stress about a way that I was living at the time, with something kind of like, what you'd say, like the thorn in my flesh and all that. And the song was just reflected on how God's view of me is not the same at all. And that's that first opening line, I wish I could be just like you. Like, I wish that I could actually see myself the way that you see me. And that's that whole refrain of tell me who I am. Is like, you seem invested in this mess. So, like, can you make it make sense? Like, can you tell me who I am? And so that was kind of where I was in the first part. I performed it at churches or at church. The second verse I wrote much later as I was working on the album, because I realized the song could really say something if I stay in that deep spiritual place, but also include some of the struggles of my spiritual racial journey. Because I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like we're not always honest about that, and those places don't cross. Like, there's a part of me that felt like a lovely kind of taboo to bring up in prayer to God. Like, can you make this make sense? And like, I know you're not white, but like, come on, like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
And so that place was, I mean, it's still in line with the exact same spiritual question. It's like, how do you see me? But the second part of that was kind of like how am I supposed to see you? Because like, again, like, you were a dark-skinned Jew, like, when you came into this earth. Like, sure, like, God as a spirit does not have a body, we're all made in his image and this kind of mosaic or whatever, but it's like, what does this mean for how I relate to you, and what does it mean for how you relate to me? Like, so it was just that kind of like those kinds of big questions. And I think at the time, at the time when I was recording, both verses and kind of rehashing the song, I was in a place where I was just like, basically the same question, God, make this make sense. But less of like, make this make sense why you're love and you love me, but it's like, make it make sense why I should trust you. Make it make sense why, like, I should be this vulnerable with you, because I feel like I've been sold a partial truth. And like, I know you're not responsible. I can say that I know you're not responsible, but like, you're kind of watching all this stuff go on.
Right.
Which is it in line with the album. It follows the anger of New Negro Spiritual. It follows the tension of the interlude about, right, how Black people have held on to their faith in the face of looking like fools to the world, for how they were treated under the same names of Jesus and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I was at, to answer your question.
And then my next question was, what emotion were you trying to capture?
Desperation. I'd say desperation. There's one of the things, because I've been, as I've been mixing this album and working on it and everything, and I go in between tracks and I'm kind of thinking about concepts, I very often connect this to the last kind of talking point of Walls, which is the 9th track in the album, where the song is like a letter to my son, and the end of it I say, keep wrestling. And I use this analogy of Jacob, like wrestling with the angel of God, like in Genesis. And to me, who I am is that desperation, like Jacob wrestling with God. It's like, tell me my name, or tell me who you are. Like, I'm not leaving until you make this make sense. But there's this aggression that's like invited and allowed, but it's like there's intimacy in the fighting, basically. So that's kind of the feeling, is like desperation.
All right. Okay. We're going to go to our next interlude. Did you want to start?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Beauty in the eye of the beholder. Don't say I never told ya. The wheel does give off an airy aura, and like to drink from the cup of King Cobra.
Okay, we should have it all up.
Okay. So in Second Class Citizen, like as I was listening to it this time around, there's like a lot that happens on the track. Like there's a lot of changes that happen.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through your creative process on it?
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned it earlier, but I was reminded that Second Class Citizen was actually the first song that I had written. It was another one I'd written at a different time. But it was a different kind of genre. It was I mean, there was rapping, but it wasn't as modern in the way it was put together. So I mean, I think the creative process was like I'm like kind of sampling myself and having a conversation with a version of myself. Let me stay away from the content, kind of just talk more about like musicality wise. Like I wanted something to hit, and I feel like here my production skills really had to raise the bar, and I feel like it really shined with like 808s and hi-hats and, you know, punching and compression and all that. Parallel compression and side chain compression. And like so but yeah, like there's a spacey feel kind of in the beginning, and you know, I kind of wanted to engage with some of that more kind of modern style of like, you know, spacey kind of cloud vibes. And but I wanted that like hard hitting chorus that had anger in the beat and had that smug confidence spoken over it, that I feel like is kind of reflective of how I express myself when I think about being labeled a certain way. Is like there's all this energy that I feel in, and then it's like, but then there's a piece that you get. But yeah, I mean, then there's the change that goes into the bridge where it kind of breaks down and you hear saxophone and flute and it's like a little bit jazzier, and then there's this like church clap that comes in, and that part was primarily, it was a bigger part of what I sampled from my original version, and that was kind of more of the style of it beforehand. So I went into that, and yeah, I mean, that change into kind of that, I mean, it wasn't spoken word necessarily, but kind of like, you know, acting through, like, you know, visualizing, bringing my boy, like walking across the red carpet of like the Hall of Faith, essentially, of our ancestors, like was something I loved being able to kind of do over that nostalgic sounding part, like sampling like this kind of more jazz oriented like approach to the song. It's kind of reminiscent of like how the album artwork presents itself, where you're kind of talking with different generations. You're going back in time. You know, I even used, again, production wise, I put some like filters and sounds over that sample to kind of give it like a vinyl scratching sound to it. But yeah, I mean, there's a level where it's kind of a conversation with an earlier version of myself, which is part of why there's kind of that variation in the music making.
And then, was this a track that came quickly, or did it take a while to finish?
It took a long time because of the production stuff I was talking about. Like I had to really like research. It was a lot of where I learned was on this track. Mm-hmm. 'Cause like most of my experience with recording music is kind of more analog and live with like a bit of MIDI built in to kind of use songwriting. But like, again, like working along Epic the Dawn's beats and like me wanting to really kind of invest in not just the lyrical side of like hip hop content, but also the production of it was like, I'm gonna step this up. And it took some time. It took some time, but I'm like really happy.
And is this one of Epic's beats too?
No, this one's mine.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So that's the thing is like, I feel like it's, like you get, I mean, I know I have a song in here that has a feature, but people talk about where you have features where like you're working with an artist and it's like, oh shoot, they just came out the verse. I gotta step my game up. Like that's how it felt production wise. Like, cause I've been like working with Epic's beats and I'm like, oh, I want to make this thing kick and hit. And being able to also like, when you're licensing or using someone else's music or beat, there's a level where like, you're kind of letting them handle the production. So when it comes to the structure of the song, when it comes to pauses and breaks, there's a little bit less freedom that you have. So like, I think that's why all the versatility in it was there. Cause it's like, if I'm doing all of it, like I'm going to have the breaks and the pauses. I'm going to have the echo of the reverb. I'm going to have like, things move along with the melodies and the songs because like I'm making the whole track as an instrument to support myself as opposed to kind of like working alongside someone else and having two minds. So
this is probably one of my favorite tracks, if not my favorite track. I feel like you got to really have a lot of fun with the track because it was your own. So you got to learn while you were moving along, but you also, it sounds like you had a lot of fun with it from like start to finish as you were learning. And there's a lot that's in the song, that's in the like the beat, and the production of the beat, but it doesn't sound like it's like there's too much, which is really cool.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I accept.
All right. So then our next one is we're going to do the Was That Racist interlude, and then we'll have the walls, and then we'll go into kind of an intermission.
Okay.
That's not a real intermission, though. It's just a break.
Pause up my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for you. Some words to my son was not typical. Out of this world, but trapped in its rituals. Mellow, extrovert, speaking so well, but in a foreign language, ghost in a shell. Hello from the outside and repeat like Adele. You had a script, but it's flipped, feeling swell. Hard drives overloaded, crashing like Adele. How did it all go? I don't know, it's hard to tell. You kidding?
Okay, so I will have to say that this song is a very beautiful song.
Thank you.
I really like it a lot. And I like when you're talking in the end and you tell our son that you love him and you love what he's going to be. It's so sweet. That's not a question. Okay, so
I accept statements.
Is there a specific line in this song that means the most to you? And why?
Specific song and specific line in the song.
And maybe not like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a line, but it could be a part that you remember or a theme even.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I thought of as we were listening to it, that I don't know that I've really made this connection before. But, I mean, one, I just kind of want to bring out, I like that the song feels like it's kind of emo.
Yeah.
And it also kind of has like the internet gamey kind of sounds that has the kind of vibe that you're like, kind of like, socially removed, kind of throwing, kind of going into like worlds of fantasy or alternatives, and staying hidden, kind of a way that I did a lot as a child. I think one thing that was difficult about this song was because I started writing it when my son was like 3. I didn't want to prophesy too much about where he would end up or what things would look like. Because I just didn't know. And I wanted to have that sensitivity with how I wrote it. So I think more of it is kind of expressive of me talking to my younger self, because the way that I grew up was what I was like. That's the things that were difficult for me are the things that I have anxiety about for my son. I think the theme that I'm trying to get to from answering your question is like, there's this idea that, right, as a young Black boy, you learn how to cope with life by escaping or hiding behind walls or not letting people see your authentic you because people don't treat it with enough value. And I think one of the things that I'm realizing listening to that first verse is that some of the consequences of that for myself as an adult parent is that I don't know how to connect with my son because I struggle with connecting with myself. And there's this longing at the end of the first verse where I'm trying to, at the end of the first verse, right, I talk about our son, right, being autistic, having autism. And I don't know, like there's this element of like me not knowing, like me wanting to connect to him and to relate to him, but I don't know myself well enough to say that my experience is the same. And I feel like that kind of harkens to that idea of like me not being, like, because I was behind walls, like I don't know enough about me to actually like give you what you would need in ways that we are the same. But the second verses are me trying anyway. And actually doing research and looking into things. And, one thing I really did like in that, which might be a shorter and more succinct answer to your question. One theme I really liked in the song is that, what is it called? Acronym. The acronym for friend. And, just kind of doing a bit of research and putting it together helped me kind of, come up with that language for myself, right? Like, and to be able to give it to my son, like, what does it mean to have a friend? And does it mean that you have to have all these things? No, but like the more that you have of them, the better it's going to be. I liked sneaking in also little neurodivergent cookies and Easter eggs in different places. There's a part in that line where I say, so line up them letters, right? The more that you have, the better, and at the time when he was 3, that was one of his main expressions of autism, just lining up letters and yelling the names of them. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna meet you where you at, so let's talk about these letters and what each one means. So that's, but yeah, those are probably some parts I really like about the song.
Yeah. I think when I was listening to the song, it's one of the first songs where when I was listening to it, it sounded like Little Thad. Like, so it's interesting that you say you wrote it and you were writing connecting to your own inner child. Because we have this thing about Harold and the Purple Crayon and like naming Thaddeus Thad after you, and just this idea that like you say that and it's like, but it was like the song when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, like this like reminds me of Little Thad, like, and something that he would like need to hear and also just be really appreciative of too. Like one of the things I feel like we're learning about Dad is that he really likes words of affirmation, and he really like is you make like the things that he gets like really like emotional, like that really touches him. Like you don't know that that's what it is, and then it just does. And this just seems like one of those things that I feel like if he heard and he knew came from you, he would be like really touched by it, very touched by it. And then something else I was gonna say too. There was that, and just this idea as I was listening to it that it like there's this idea that like walls seem like boundaries, like, you know, and so it's just like some people you get to let your walls down, but other people you put your walls up. Right. And like it seems like life is about learning, finding those people and like kind of learning how to do those things. So like in your own life, like how does that express itself?
Uh-oh.
Just an impromptu question.
Right. Therapy session now.
I'm showing skin. Okay.
I don't mind. Hey. So how
have you learned, like how, because you're talking about it in the song, like, so then it's like, how are you, either have you learned how to put up the walls and like who to let in and who to put up walls for? Is it something that you're still learning? Or is there like hope, you know, for the future of what you would want it to look like?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, there's a line in the song where I say in the third verse, I'm fully grown and still learning this lesson. And that's kind of, then the lyrics kind of answers your question. Like, I had to do a lot of research to figure out, a lot of the song is like, as a parent, trying to give your kid what you didn't have, and you still don't have it. So there's a level where I feel like I'm building it. I mean, as I've been able to reflect and engage in different seasons of my life in terms of like friendships, I think one thing that's stuck with me is, that having walls up is okay in certain ways. I think like to not confuse the coping mechanism with necessary and healthy boundaries. I think like not going after other people as much. I think that's something that I've kind of been able to grow in as of recently, is like, okay, like, I mean, I don't know that I put myself as like a attachment anxious person, maybe in certain relationships, but there's an element where I'm like, I'm just talking about friendships here. Why don't they like me? Right? Or like, I sent them a text, like, you know, I haven't responded in like X amount of days or whatever. And it's like, well, let me call them. Maybe they feel this way. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And it's like, oh, they might just not be available in more ways than one. And if it's enough ways, then it's like, when you're available, you can come to me, but I'm going to take my needs elsewhere for the time period. And it doesn't have to be a burned bridge either, but it's just like, oh, like, don't hold somebody hostage for something you want from them. Like, but keep that space open for other people. Yeah.
That's good. Okay. That is our intermission. Okay, welcome back. So before we hop back into the tracks, let's talk about the interludes, because we have a few back-to-back coming up and we've gotten to listen to a few. So what made you want to do interludes, and where did you find the people?
Well, I wanted to do interludes because I didn't only want my own voice on the album. Particularly because I'm expressing myself about some things. I wanted a sense of community, that there are multiple people thinking about these things and having these conversations. And it's always difficult when you're aiming to express some stereotypical idea in a way that is, representative and not monolithic. So I felt like the best way for me to kind of meet that was let the tracks be my own experience and journey, and then let the interludes be the kind of the commentary of people who may think differently, who may approach things from different angles, and it may kind of tease out things. Another reason actually was I actually held the interludes, I actually held the interviews to give me material. So when I held them, it made me think about how I was going to structure the album. It made me think about what themes to include and actually what songs to write. There were some songs that I had done and ready, but especially some of the first initial interviews I did with Nigel, with Marquis, with Brandon. Like half of my songs hadn't been written yet, and some of them were ideas. So when I talked with them, I had this opportunity to kind of bring in other voices to how I would want to address a topic. That meant it wasn't just coming from my experience, but could be kind of reflective of, even if it's a microcosm, like a sample community.
Yeah.
Oh, sample community. Oh. Well, yeah. Okay.
This is holy ground, let me set the stage, son. A lot of pressure, I can't lower the gauge, none. I've been waiting.
All right, so you just said that this was the most played song, the favorite of the album.
That's right.
Do you have any thoughts as to why? What do you think?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, this track represents kind of the stereotypical understanding of what the talk is. It's like, sit down, let me tell you what you do. It involves the police. Is basically like, that is the thing. This is what you do when you're stopped by the police. This is what you do to prevent things from escalating or getting farther. 10 and 2, hands on the wheel. You know, this is what you say or don't say when you're arrested. It's that dramatization of what it means to be Black and what has been covered in news media. From the 2010s decade, more specifically in our generation in terms of social media coverage. So like, I think that's why it's the top. I'm a little torn about it because, again, it's a little stereotypical, and I feel like I myself, like, what my profession is that I am an authority figure in people's lives in a way that affects the trajectory of their life, like arguably more than a police officer. And that's a school teacher. Right? And I think that when we focus on, I mean, obviously life and death takes the center stage because of life and death. But I think quality of life and what ultimately leads up to, like, you know, how you live your life, and that idea in those interludes about, like, not surviving, but being faithful and living in a way where you're purposeful and expressing all of what you have to the world to give. That's where, like, I feel like a lot of things tend to get overlooked in their impact on the development of a child, a human being. So I'm a little torn about it because it's like, yeah, like, it's, I mean, obviously it's important, it's a big thing, but there's a reason why I only wanted there to be one track on it. And then there's a slew of a bunch of other stuff that has to do with emotional regulation and, like, how you see yourself, how you relate to other people, you know, everything else kind of outside of that stereotypical view.
All right. And then I think you answered that one already. What do you think it says about you as an artist?
The song? What do I think this song says about me as an artist? I would say, as an artist, I would say thoughtfulness. I think a really big thing, as I was thinking about it, it's one of my songs that sounds the roughest in terms of production and also in terms of delivery of lyricism. And I think this is the song that sounds like the talk, in that I'm, like, talk rapping. And, like, in comparison to other ones where you can hear more style, more rhythm, more flow, this one is just kind of like, let me lay it all out. So I think a part of what this reflects of me as an artist is how contemplative I am and how much I prioritize content in terms of getting a point across. Now, it's not the only way that I do it, but I think this is one of those songs where kind of that attention to detail, crafting lyrics, communicating a story, really shines among, the other ones on the album.
Okay. I think one of the things that I like about this song is that it feels very simple. And so I know that a lot of times when something is very simple and flows, that it takes a lot of time for it to get that way. And so, but it does, it feels very like the lyrics are very like intentional in like where it is that they're placed. I also feel like, I know that you were saying that it's stereotypical and it's sort of the dramatization. But I do feel like to me, it actually doesn't feel stereotypical. It feels pretty like this would be a really nice track for anybody to play for their child, without actually having to have a conversation, which is really nice.
Wow.
Because I feel like there isn't anything in here that is like, like there's, it's not like F the police or anything, like it's just like, this is what you like do to just stay safe, and it's just sort of like, and there's sort of this like sadness in the song, that it's, I think because of the track, like Epic's beat, is sort of, there's this kind of like contemplative sadness that's just like, oh, I've got to have this conversation, and I think with like even the, like, I don't know what it is in the background, but it's some type of horn that's playing in the background too. And it's like kind of sighing, I think. And so, because it's a heavy topic, because you also, I think as a parent, don't know that even if, like, I can do all the things, my kid can do all the things, and it's like I can prepare them, but like it doesn't mean that they're going to be safe, because like you say in the song, and I think it's in this song or it might be in the Wall song, I can't remember, but it's like, it's dependent on this other person's fight or flight response. Yeah. So because it's dependent on somebody's fight or flight response, they're who has a weapon, like, that's a really like scary and dangerous thing, so and that's what makes it heavy, because we all know, like, our kids, the problem is that the person pulling our kid over doesn't know our kid, like, and doesn't see our kid. I know that there's, and I don't know if I say this later on in one of the interludes, but there's a book, Eloquent Rage, by Brittany Cooper, and she talks about Trayvon Martin and why, there's a certain number of white women who are sitting on the jury, and why it is that they didn't, what is it? They didn't say that Zimmerman was guilty because they couldn't see their sons in Trayvon Martin. They couldn't see their 15-year-old sons or nephews, or, students in Trayvon Martin. We could, though. Like, so when that happened with Trayvon Martin, I immediately see all the black boys in my life. Like, and I think that, and even for me too, if something horrendous happens on television to a white boy who's like 15 years old, or my son is 7, that happens to a 7-year-old boy that's white, I immediately am going to think about my kid, and so, and that doesn't always happen, that way. And so if you have a police officer that pulls over my 17-year-old black son and doesn't see his 17-year-old white son and my son, now we have a problem, like, and so, and I can't control that. So, yeah, no. And I think too, like, one of the things in writing it, I wanted to take a frame on was how to apply, like, the standard kind of, like, masculinity to, like,
training your son, right? Because there's a sense that who I'm talking to is this preteen or this teenager who's like, yeah, dad, like, or like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. Or like, they don't have the right to do this to me. Or like, oh, so you're just going to be a pushover to the world, right? And so there's this careful, crafted response that anticipates that approach. That's why the song is called No Masters. It's like nobody owns you. Right. And there's a line in there that says, this isn't cowardice, this is your agency. Yeah. And it's this whole idea that like if you are able to follow these rules, you are actually the more powerful person. Nobody will ever know it. You may never get the accolades, right? And ideally, you should have much more, like, you should have much more of a prize. You should have much more as a reward for your effort in the way that you express self-control, that you master your own body, right? That's part of the sadness and the sighing of the song. And I think there's a reason why this song comes later in the album, right, rather than first. Is one, we're building the story of the humanity of the Black child all the way through, and then you come to, oh yeah, there's the police and this whole thing, right? Which, I mean, I don't mean to belittle the experience of, like, you know, by me saying it's stereotypical, I don't mean to say, like, I wish it wouldn't get covered. Obviously, it needs to. I think for me, that's one of the things that's a little saddened, and I think is kind of the nuance that I'm aiming to kind of bring, is that, like, we get coverage for when our bodies are hit. We get coverage for when lives are lost. We get coverage for when, like Martin Luther King time, right? When we have the visuals of brutality. And then the day-to-day of microaggressions, of, you know, everything on the slippery slope that trains and teaches us as a society to get to that point that is undeniable. Right. All of that exists ahead of it, you know. And there's so, like, in terms of crafting and writing this in order, there's a sense where this kind of is the title track because it's what everybody's expecting. Right. But the build up to it, to me, was so important, was to build the case for the humanity of the Black child, not to a white audience, or a world audience, maybe in a sense, in that, right, it's educational, and focusing on a person's story, right, can be reflective, or other people can see it, but it's kind of like for my own child. Meaning my blood child and my inner child. Like, no, I actually have to teach up and teach to you, because the world didn't, that you have value. And that's why the one of the first lines in the introduction is, you know, basically, I'm going to sing every day over you that your Father and God see value in you. And that's how it starts, is because that's like where I want it to go. So I'm ranting on that because I'm passionate. But
yeah. Okay. All right, so then we're going to do our two other interludes, which is what I am featured on. And then we'll listen to My House, which Kareem is featured on.
Kareem elevated.
All right, here we go.
If the world ain't gonna give you none, best believe we got our love. Lean it in and let me tell you something. Not in my house.
It's just different.
Your father's feeling it, I'm in a fray. Yeah, all I know is I'm gonna keep you safe. Hey, stay clear of them windows, boy.
So my question is, this track has a feature. Was it always intended to be that way?
I'd say yes. I mean, there was another feature I actually wanted. It was actually a new Negro Spiritual. Ended up working out, and I'm not working out. I kind of take some fault for that in retrospect, looking back on it. But I think that one and this one, I feel like, I mean, just having songs that really hit hard and have 3 verses of space for an idea. I love having the opportunity to have somebody else kind of come on it. And I've known Kareem back when he went by Forensics, probably like 10 years ago. For 10 years. An LA artist. Met him in like open mic nights and stuff like that in different places, churches and stuff. And he's like, I mean, talk about authentic. In terms of style and heart. But I'd say this was one of those tracks where I was like, yeah, I'd love to have a feature, and it's great to have. I mean, interludes give a space where it's not my voice everywhere, but having him here and having that feature on the album was like, we did it. We got it going. We did it.
Okay. And then what was it like working with him?
It was cool. Like he worked quick and fast, I was like, I sent him over the ideas and the stuff. He loved the beat and the idea. He got into it and had the thing ready, sent me over the tracks. I mean, it was a breeze. And I think too, just kind of like, I mean, having the opportunity to I mean, I'll say on my part, working on an album like this that's so personal.
Yeah.
And so specific in terms of content, right? Giving space to someone to kind of express themselves within the same themes.
Yeah.
Is a challenge. I mean, I talked about how in certain songs, reflective of my own life, I can have walls, right? So letting people in those spaces can be rough, but I absolutely love that. Got the opportunity to do it with him, and I think too, energy wise, man, he brought it on this track, and kind of kept things alive between the first and the third verse. It's great.
Alrighty. Okay, so we're gonna listen to the last songs.
Do you want to? Oh, I wanted to ask you because we just had a section where.
Reminisce. Like Lights got darkness. First semester junior year, knocks were at my door. An officer was standing there, I didn't know what for. He started asking questions like he wanted to ID me. I answered with politeness, frightened. How did this cop? I'm not gonna pretend that we've reached the end. So much more to say, but I'll wait. I wanna hear from you.
Okay.
Alright. Oh, happy face. Okay, so
Oh wait, hold on. Sorry. Here we go.
So I'll just say, for Reminisce, well, I feel like can you answer a question on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says, is there anything in the song that most people wouldn't notice, but you're really proud of?
Yeah. I thought about this one. It's a subtle thing. I feel like there's a lot of wordplay I slapped into the last verse because the first two was a lot of storytelling. And I didn't have as much opportunity to use wordplay. So when it came to the third one, I was like, oh, let me just rock this and whatever. And I think one part that I just thought was a little clever, and I'm going to say it was intentional, was in the last lines, actually. I say, what is it? It's, having black boy joy doesn't make you dumb. All these April Fools try to put you in the slum. Oh, wait, it was before that. It's, let's see. A little birdie told me you'd be shining like a star. So march to your own beat, hit that drum. And it's double work, but don't forget to hum. Having black boy joy doesn't make you dumb. All these April Fools try to put you in the slums. If they had their way, they'd make you double pay. Always keep your receipts and stand firm come what may. So, I throw in there, it's double work. I actually put in double work because I did double entendre stuff in there. I reference March, April, and May at the top of certain lines. And those are all months in the season of spring. And it's that idea of youthfulness. So I think it's just a little touch that I feel like was kind of added in there. And then again, like doing double work. So it's like you're also like doing double work to listen. This is like what I'm putting here. This is something, it just kind of came out that way. And I was like, oh, dang. Like, you know, but it's something I've appreciated in lyricism. Like, I feel like Lupe Fiasco, he had one song people talked about for like the longest time about how he had this like imagery of like the body and he used like different body parts going through like,
I
the
love
whole
the song.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So it's like that kind of stuff.
Is it Daydreaming? Daydreaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Daydreaming.
Daydream. Till we say what's on the flower. That one. Yeah. A couple of hours like we're spending. So that one I'm pretty proud of. I mean, I feel like some of there's other lyricism stuff in there. I liked mentioning a Boys Meets World thing because like I'm making a reference, but again, Boy Meets World is like what Corey's in. It's like this is the Talk album.
Right.
And it's taking a spin on you know, the idea of like this being a coming of age thing, but it's not a white one. Like,
it's not. Corey's like all American,
right?
So, yeah, for sure.
But it's kind of like we've talked about like You and Me, like Eddie Murphy, how he like represents that like Bart Simpson, that like what's his Ferris Bueller, like where he's
our
like
version.
It's like our black version. It's like Eddie Murphy, like
Michael
he
J.
can
Fox.
clown around and get away with it. Jamie Foxx too.
Michael J. Fox.
Oh, Michael J. Fox. Okay, yeah. I don't know if he's not the same as Eddie Murphy with that.
I don't think so.
I
Eddie
feel like
Murphy, Will Smith.
I feel like what's his name? Jamie Foxx is like black charm.
He is,
but not like black. Like
he doesn't
bad
have that
boy humor.
Yeah,
like,
he doesn't have that smile. Eddie Murphy has that smile that says, "I'm getting ready to get away with this," and you're just like, "And yes, you are." So yeah, he has that. Will Smith is another one too that has a silliness about him. Yeah, he doesn't have like necessarily the smile that says, "I'm going to get away with it," but it's more of a like the silliness of it is sort of like, you know, he's just that kid in the classroom where you're like, oh my gosh, like you have to turn this in or you have to do blah, blah, or whatever. And he makes a joke and you just, as an adult, you can't not laugh.
We are both teachers, so we know those kids.
So yeah.
I wanted to answer this for a different track if it's not too.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm curious if this was something that you had caught in New Negro Spiritual in the first verse. I take this approach where I'm telling the story of our history in America, but I'm doing it in a way where all I have is Western history to use as references.
Oh, I did not.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of how it came out. And there's even, the way that kind of ties it in is that part in the beginning where I say, so I'm basically use the Hansel and Gretel reference of leaving breadcrumbs. Yeah. And then I talk about the wicked witch has us in a spell. Yeah. They got me too. I'm talking about a Jezebel. So it's that idea that's like I'm trying to tell you what's right, but I'm still colonized. Yeah. Right. Like while this is all happening and the tools that I have to explain this to you are Western. Right. And then I go in to talk about like, Jesus is in there too, which maybe is a Western reference. That's part of the argument of that first verse. Because it gets to the end and talks about how us being Christians and black is like, are we given scraps from the table? And it's like, but we made the soul food out of it. And it's this amazing thing that everybody loves. So like So it kind of it follows that trail of that idea all the way through the first verse, and this idea that like we can only cook with what we have, but like we gonna cook.
Yeah.
And like I'm gonna tell this story even though I'm using fragments, like referencing like the Citadel, right? And like Satan like throwing fiery arrows from the Citadel. It has this like Game of Thrones. I reference Game of Thrones in the second verse too, actually. So there's a lot of that where it's like using all this imagery that has kind of more like European and more like Western, and is kind of intentional in like showing like. Because that's one of the things in starting the album and me even talking about like the Jezebel situation is like, here I am as a black male, like having privilege, but then like criticizing and being critical of people for how they have used their privilege against me, right? So there's this way of like, I wanted to kind of insert that like I only have what I was given, and I'm coming with this swag and trying to like, you know what I mean? So. I was curious how much of that you might have caught or not, or okay.
I did not.
Okay.
Okay, and so then Any Day of the Week is the last track. So just coming full circle, why did you pick this track to end that album?
It's a feel-good song. That's why. It's the one I would imagine, like, you know, people have their lighters up, you know, in the audience while they're listening to. It's simple and torn down. It talks about vulnerability and kind of like the interludes push towards the interlude before it, and then interweaving the interlude, the interviews into that last song kind of give this idea that like this isn't done. You know, there's a part of me that's like, I mean, artistically, I worked on this thing for 5 years, and it's like this thing's never gonna end. And even the song being very raw and not being as produced, it's actually me sitting in this room. Recording with this microphone, playing in my piano at the same time. It's a live recording.
Yeah.
So there's no like cut, do this verse, let me try to get this verse different. It's all just raw. And I think it ended up having an artistic purpose because of that. That it's like very like intimate. You know, the conversation in the room with your son, singing this song, wishing that, like, you know, hoping that your bond stays strong. And if I came off too strong with all these other 18 tracks, you know, like, know that I'm willing from here on to make things like two-way.
Yeah. And
that I have things to learn from you, and that this will continue, and that, you know, so it feels very purposeful as an ending point. And my hope too is that as listeners would listen to it, they would have that kind of unction, like, now go, or like, this is your opportunity, like, because it feels kind of like, I mean, this stuck with me. There was a song I was working on a separate project like years ago, like a decade ago, and as I was chatting with a friend of mine who does sound engineering, he was like, oh yeah, like this song, it sounds so live, and it has that feeling of you like being in a practice room in like college, where like you're alone and it's just all this. And that's kind of how it feels with this song too, is like there's like an intimacy in the like the kind of the lower production and the sense of you being there.
Yeah.
That kind of brings, the idea would be, I mean, hopefully it brings the listener kind of back into their own experience as they're listening to it and out of the album, you know.
I feel like a lot of times the talk is less of a dialogue and more of a, you know, do this because I said so, you know, take this and run with it. And less of a, let me learn from you. What are the things that you're going through? How has the landscape changed in your generation? And in what ways are my strategies for dealing with what I dealt with outdated?